All right, lads, welcome back to another episode of Who's Got the Ball. We've hit the landmark 30 episodes, doing pretty good, getting on nicely. I'm currently on my holidays down here in Kerry with the family, so this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode for ye. That's why I have such a gorgeous tan. If you're watching on video, you'll be able to see it. But Shane is also here. How are you, Shane?
Good. There really wasn't anything on at the weekend to talk about, other than I want to have a word about Rio and Gamoa being the next coming of Messi and Lamal if they had a child. Other than that, I think very little's happened. This Community Shield is back next week, and that's when the football's back. Actually, we did have League One during the week, and Wigan had a great win. I was watching it with Mossy. He's a Wigan fan, so
Okay,
they picked up a good 3 points there, and it's a good start to the season for them. But there's
nice
nothing
one.
happening. There's literally nothing happening in the NBA, which is why we're going to say that we didn't even mention the letter of the NBA in this episode. Just about the NFL and the football.
Yeah, like you said, not a whole lot going on at the moment. Even with the end of GAA really early. Now
Mm.
it's kind of annoying because I liked watching that a little bit later into the summer after the football and stuff was done. But we're not too far now. As you said, Community Shield isn't too long away, and then we've got the Premier League coming back. So that's why we've got for two episodes, as we mentioned. Next week we've got the Premier League preview and the usual episode. So this week, what we did touch on was we finished up previewing the AFC North, which is the Browns and the Ravens, two teams very opposite ends of the stick there in terms of their quality. Then we moved on to the Premier League previews. We did our last two teams deep dive of Brentford and Fulham, and then we wrapped up with previewing two more teams. We moved on to the AFC South, which is Texans and Titans, and we'll wrap that division up for you guys next week. But we just left it there since I am a little bit tighter for time, so it's a shorter
Yeah.
episode for you this week. So we hope you enjoyed it, and we will let you dive straight into it.
Just before we jump in there, I don't want people to think that. So they might have seen on Twitter that the Scottish Football Podcast did a 12-hour podcast previewing the Scottish Championship League One and League Two. Our episode won't be 12 hours next week. Don't worry, it will be an hour. To just it's only one league. You're fine. You'll be able to listen and enjoy it.
Yeah, important disclaimer to make before we get into
Mm.
this week's one. So work away, lads, and we'll see you again next week for that one, of course. But as Shane said, not 12 hours, a lot shorter than that. So enjoy the episode. Let's continue so with their NFC North team previews. So last week we had Danny on and we did Steelers and Bengals. So we've got the Browns and Ravens left. Kind of two massive gaps in talent, people
Mm.
would say, between these two teams. So let's start with the lesser one. No offense to the Browns, but probably the worst team in the league right now by many people's metrics. So the first question on them, as
Yeah.
usual, is where do they need to improve most from last season?
Other than everywhere, I think they need to mostly improve on offense. So the average 15.2 points per game last year, which was the lowest in the league. A lot of it is just their quarterback situation last year was horrific. They'd
Yeah,
no
it's so
passing
much better
game.
now.
They really, yeah. Well, they've five options this year to go from at least. And there was no passing game, really poor running a game, especially after Nick Chubb left as well. So like
Yeah.
15.2 points a game. When I was doing that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is horrific. So they definitely need to improve on offense. And
Yeah, I had the exact same thing as you. I literally had that same stat because when I saw that, I was like, how does that even make sense? At 15.2
yeah,
points per game, like in the NFL, it's just abysmal. And the thing is, I would more likely go that that's like five field goals than it is two touchdowns every time. Like just in my mind when I think about the Browns, makes more sense. But yeah, worst scoring offense in the league. So I think just adding more points is not even like to win games, but just for the fans is
yeah.
like essential for this season. So that's what I
Like
had to be
I think
honest.
it is, yeah, I think it's such a non-negotiable that you have more points. Like, don't expect them to go out and win 10 or 15 games. Obviously, they're not getting anywhere close to that, but you need to be hitting 20 points, a minimum of 20
Yeah.
points, and see what you can do from there. If you're only scoring 15 points, you're going to lose every single quarter, not alone every single match. So when I like yourself now, I couldn't believe when I saw how low it was.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I think I already made the point like a second ago, but like for the fans, it's just so disheartening to see your team doing that every week. So yeah, not even to win. If they can just make their fans a little bit happier, that'd be a win for them, I guess, because they're not. They can hardly expect to be like good enough to challenge. So, but looking at who they actually have on their team right now, that is solid. Who did you have as your three best players to make an impact?
Yeah, but I think one of them, if we both don't have him, I'll be shocked. Surely you have Miles Garrett as well. Like he's the defensive rock, a new deal, 160 million for 4 years, keeps him there till 2030. Sorry, not 2026. He leads the league in pressure rate again in 2024. He's the only man that's a bright spark for them, really, as far as I'm concerned. I put in Jerome Ford, the running back. He kind of emerged towards the end of last year as a bit of kind of a small bit more reliable than the rest of them, and he was a bit of a good pass catcher as well. So I think if he does get the role full time or becomes their running back one, then they could have something that's decent. But I'm not overly got him, but I just felt they needed something. And then I had to pick between the 42 QBs they had, and I went with Shador Sanders. He's apparently impressed in camp. He might fit well into Stefanski's game. We'll see. But when you have that many quarterbacks, I had to pick one, just for someone to try and keep an eye on. So I went with Shador Sanders.
Yeah, it's a pure toss up at this point. Like, who's even going to
Yeah,
pick him?
100%.
I think their fans are even happy that not to be happy that someone got injured, but like Kenny Pick going down injured, at least it makes some sort of an answer. But then, literally,
Yeah.
like I think yesterday they signed Tyler Huntley, so now they have another
Mm,
quarterback again. Like it's crazy. But so I actually had Garrett as well, as you mentioned. Both of us
yeah.
should definitely have him there. He's the only one that's like this is one of those ones that sometimes we tried not to pick obvious people, but for this you have to pick the most obvious because he is their best player by far. And yeah, best player in the league, I think. And of course, just massive impact in every game, regardless of how they play. And that's the reason why they paid him the highest in the league ever at his position, 40 million per year. So yeah, like you said, obvious one there. Second one I went to is Denzel Ward. He's a lockdown corner. Unfortunately, he's had no team success, but in his career, he's had four Pro Bowls, and I think if he was with somebody else, another team, that had a decent offense at least once or twice, he could be somebody that people would say is the best at the position, just because of how good he is. And sometimes that work goes unnoticed when you're constantly bombarded. But he's unbelievable. So another big season, I'd say, ahead for him. And lastly, I had
Mm,
Jerry Judy. He showed what he was about last season. People were doubting him coming off the Broncos, but he might see himself as somebody who can form a relationship with one of these quarterbacks, maybe Shador, like you mentioned. And last year, over 1,200 yards. Obviously, Jameis Winston helped in a couple of massive games there,
mm.
but I think if he formed a relationship with a quarterback, that could be something because he has a lot of potential. So I think he's like 26 or something. Signed a pretty
Yeah,
decent
he's not
contract
old.
with them. So yeah, I like him. I think he's a good shout. So to move on then to, do we think they'll hit their over under wins? It's 5.5. What did you have?
Oh, under. They're the
Yeah,
worst team in the league. They're the
me
Panthers of
too.
this season coming. They're getting 3 wins max, and they'll probably beat the Jets, the Giants, and the Chiefs or something. Like it'll be something ridiculous like
Just
that.
random.
But no, they're not getting over 5.5 wins. There's no chance.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had no. I looked at their schedule. Like every one of these, I look at the schedule before I decide. And this one, I was like, I don't really even need to because I just how are they going to win
Mm,
games? Just the quarterback situation just makes no sense whatsoever. So much money is still going on Deshaun Watson.
yeah.
The whole situation is very bad. But yeah, they'll be hoping that they can develop Shador, but as we've mentioned kind of in a joking way a few times, like the amount of quarterbacks they have is just like ridiculous. Makes no sense.
Mm.
So I can't see too much going right for this team, to be honest. So yeah, I went
No,
with no.
yeah, they could genuinely go into the first 5 games with different quarterbacks in each one. Like they could go in
Yeah.
with Shador for game one. He throws 4 interceptions. They bring in Kenny Pickett. He has a howler. They bring in someone else, and they could just do that. And they're like, right now we actually need to pick one, and then go back to Shador after sitting him out for a month. They don't make sense. I can't believe what they're after doing. Their draft was hilariously bad. Like,
Yeah,
what are
and
you
then
doing? Drafting 3 quarterbacks they drafted, wasn't it?
yeah,
That's
I
outrageous.
think
Like, what are you doing? What's the point?
I think they yeah, they picked your man was it? I can't even remember the first. Dylan Gabriel was the first, I think, that they picked. Let me double check that because I can't even remember who the first. That's
Yes, yeah.
terrible
Mm.
considering he was picked before. Yeah, he was picked first before Shador. And that's so bad for him considering he was picked before him, but nobody is even thinking about him. And then yeah, they just signed Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco, so they signed in total four quarterbacks. Now Tyler Huntley makes that five in this one off season, including the draft. It's just yeah, it's just laughable. But in terms of their ceiling with the current roster and coach, I said like 7 wins maybe if everything somehow goes right. Like I can never see them getting close to this, but I think at an absolute ceiling, there's a couple of games there that they did have easy teams, but I think the other team will be seeing that as an easy win for them. So I think sometimes they do win a game in division as well, just randomly. But I just wrote that the team pretty much stinks, so I can't see more than 7.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. I have 6 to 7 wins, but I think reaching five would actually be a real peak from. So yeah, they're not going anywhere this year, next year, and probably not the year after either.
Yeah, I agree with that. So moving on then to the Ravens, are the opposite end of the spectrum in this division. Where they need to improve most from last season, I said that the passing defense was really poor last season. They allowed the second most yards per game at 244. They'll probably be hoping that getting Jair Alexander in will help with this. He's a really good player. He has a good relationship with Lamar Jackson, which obviously they're not playing on the same side of the ball, but that should be
Mm.
good for morale, and hopefully he settles in quickly there. I think that he's a really good player if injuries can avoid if he can avoid injuries, and him opposite Marlon Humphrey, and then you still have a couple of really good players in the middle there with Kyle Hamilton and Roquan Smith. So yeah, I think there's no reason why this passing defense should be so bad. It just really
Mm.
didn't click last year. Obviously new coordinator and stuff like that, but yeah, that's the main thing for me.
Yeah, I just said that they just need to get past the Bills when it comes to playoff time because we'll talk about it further on. But if they can get past the Bills, then they are a real candidate to go the whole way. But it's just the Bills have their number. They always seem to have their number. So I think if they could just improve on their performance against the Bills, I know they were unlucky last year, 27-25, I think it was, and it was a really tight game, but they just keep losing the tight games as well. So they need to just find the way to beat Josh Allen and company and see where they go from there then.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that was obviously the Mark Andrews drop in that game that they could have kind of won the game on
Mm.
that if it didn't. Like Lamar had a really bad first half, but then he turned it around in a way that he hadn't done before in the playoffs. So I feel like they're just stepping ever closer to that. But we already talked about the Bills, and I think they're probably the one of the strongest teams in the league in both of our opinions. So
Yeah.
that is a good point. So about the three players on the team that will make the biggest impact, I actually already mentioned one of them. So it's Marlon Humphrey. He had 6 interceptions last year, his 8th year in the league, 4 times Pro Bowler, and now he has more help in Jair Alexander. So hopefully those two form a nice partnership. But I think he's elite, and he'll make a massive impact for them. Second, I've won with Isaiah Likely. Um, I think he'll take another jump this year at tight end. Like they play a lot of two tight end, even three tight end in this offense. They always have done. And Mark Andrews may not have the highest confidence after the way last season ended and went in
Mm.
general. So I think he could even take another step up after having nearly 500 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. He was big in the red zone at times. So I think yeah, he'll have another big season. And then lastly, I went with Derrick Henry, kind of an obvious one, but it's the second most yards he's ever had last year in 9 years in the league. Usually running backs start to slow down. He took another jump with 16 touchdowns as well, which is absolutely crazy, and nearly 2,000 yards.
Outrageous. Yeah.
I don't see what stops him doing this again with that offensive line. Lamar being an option there, and then the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. I know he's towards the end of his career, but it's another thing for other defenses to think about. So yeah, I think he'll have another massive year. Did you have anybody different?
Yeah, so I did have Jair Alexander. I think he's a great pickup. We talked about him already. I don't need to go into too much more detail on him. He's a machine. As you said, he's going to bring up the morale massively as well, and he's just a really good player. Obviously, I had King Henry for all the reasons you said. 16 touchdowns, nearly 2,000 yards, just ridiculous. Like, so how is he doing that in his ninth or 10th season? Is
Yeah,
outrageous. And then I put in Mark Andrews, and it's not even it's not about him making the biggest impact. I think it's about him trying to get back to a level where he's making some sort of impact.
yeah,
He had a really massive off year last year, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad tight end. I still
Mhm.
think he's a really reliable option for him, and I think he's someone that is going to come back to his own this year.
Yeah, I think it's interesting we both went with two different tight ends. It kind of proves the point there that I said as well about how
Mm,
like they play two tight ends a lot. So it's interesting to have two guys there be in the same position, but and actually cornerbacks. You mentioned Jair and I mentioned Humphrey. So it shows how
yeah,
deep this team, and that kind of leads us nicely into the next two questions. So next is, do you think they'll hit the over under with the bookies in their wins, which is 11.5 this year? What did you have?
over.
Yeah,
I didn't even look through their schedule. I just know they're going over. They're getting 12 or 13 minimum again. They were 12-5 last year, 12 and
yeah,
6. Yeah, 12
12
and 5 last year. They're so good. They are still one of the best teams in football. They're good. They're getting over, and it's going to be comfortable.
Yeah, I said it's over as well. I think they'll just about get to 12 because they have a really tough schedule, but I think it won't matter because of how good they are. Like you said, schedule doesn't matter when you're that good of a team. So I think they'll get there again after getting it last season because I think they've improved, and I think Lamar will be just as good as he was last year, if not better. So having said that, then current roster and coach, the ceiling, I went with Super Bowl. They have the ability
Mm,
without a doubt. Um, it's just like whether they can push in that playoff mode where I think they got more confidence last year. Like if they got crashed out against the Bills and Lamar didn't bounce back in the second half, you'd be the same feeling you did every other year where you're like, no, they don't have the playoff push, they don't have that strength. But it showed that he was able to bounce back from a tough half, and that gave me a lot more confidence in him going into this year, despite them losing that game ultimately. So yeah, I think Super Bowl is definitely on the cards.
yeah, there's no point saying anymore. I obviously have the same thing down. I think they are definitely in top 3 or 4 teams that we've mentioned so far that are going to be pushing for a Super Bowl. And if they can just get over the line against the Bills, then I don't see why they can't win it.
I'd love to see that as the AFC Championship game instead of seeing the Chiefs there again. I think it'd be good to see those two actually get to that game and battle out the Bills and Ravens rather than the Chiefs knocking someone off and then seeing them in the Super Bowl again. I think that would be nice, just kind of as a bit of a something
End
different.
it up.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, that's them wrapped up. Let's move on to two teams then for the Premier League. Our last two. As I mentioned last week, we're going to have an extra episode next week, which is going to be like a full Premier League season preview, predictions, and stuff like that. So let's cover Brentford and Fulham as a deep dive into those two teams right now because they are the last two we have. So we'll start with Brentford. Do you want to throw them across to me first?
Yeah. So where did Brentford need to improve most from last season?
So I kind of found it hard to answer this considering they have a whole new system almost in place with one of their best players gone and their manager gone as well. But I think if they can adapt quickly, that would be the most important thing for them. It's not exactly an improvement, but it will be something they'll need to improve on as learning this new system and working how they're going to play under Andrews and without their main guy in Boomo playing there anymore. So I think that's really important for them.
Hmm. I think that's a good shout, but I went their away form last year was abysmal. They really need to pick up on that. 4 wins in the league away from home last year.
Yeah,
And but like they go away and they beat some big teams and then they just keep losing to the likes of Wolves, Ipswich, just go away and just drop silly points at Leicester and stuff like that. So they really do need to improve that this year. As you mentioned, it's a new tactical approach this year now, so we'll see how they get on. But I think they could be in trouble this year.
yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty tough for them considering like how much they've changed in one year, and if they were to lose Wissa as well, I think that would be massive. But yeah, I think it's
Who are
gonna be
their
a little tough.
Yeah, speaking of players, who are their 3 most important ones that will make the biggest impact, do you think?
So I've gone with Nathan Collins first of all. He played every
Obviously, yeah.
minute of every game last year. And we're going to mention him since Irish star, probably one of the best Irish players we have. He's their captain right now, and they've just announced. So I think yeah, that tells a lot about him, and he's the Irish record transfer and the second highest Irish record transfer in the Premier League. So or in any league. So he might break that again next time he moves, but. Second, then I've also gone for another Irishman, Kelleher. gone over from Liverpool. I think he'll prove what he's about now, and I think it's as a starting Premier League keeper. And I also think it's nice for us to have that like build up of an Irish connection, centre back and goalkeeper, because that'll lead into the Irish team as well. So I think that'll work nicely. And then lastly, as someone I already mentioned that they need to hold on to is Wissa. They need to hold on to him. Seems like they want to keep him because they don't want to let both himself and Mbumo go in one window. He is aging, and they're asking for a pretty high transfer fee. So I'm not sure teams are going to match that, but we'll see what happens with Newcastle. Kind of still probably interested if they don't get Sesko, as that kind of unravels at the minute. But I think he's probably their main guy, and if they let him go, they could be in even bigger trouble. But did you have any other three players?
Yeah, I just want to mention on Vista for a second first. So I think if Newcastle do sign Seshko over United, then they'll sign Vista as well. But if Newcastle sign Watkins, they're not going to sign Watkins and Vista. They're not going to sign two 28, 29-year-olds and have them both kind of hit the retirement home at the same time. So I think it depends for Vista on if Newcastle can get Seshko over the line. If they don't and he goes to United, which does look likely, then I think Vista will be stuck there and it won't be getting his Champions League football. I only had one different one to you. I had Collins and Kelleher. Obviously, Irish boys took over for the two of us there, but
Mhm.
I then had Michael Coyote. He's the new right back. They had him in brought him in January, and they've signed him full time now from Fiorentina. He's incredible. He's so fast. He's athletic. He's very young, and coming in now, he'll probably be the starting. I don't even know if they're going to play a 4-3-4-3 or 4-3-3. We don't know yet, but he'll be the starting on the right in the defensive end anyway. And I think he's one to keep an eye on for the season. I think he's absolutely quality.
Yeah, I was actually impressed with their looking at their squad. Like some of the players they have at a young age and depth in different positions. Obviously, it's hard to lose
Mm,
some of your best players, but I think they do still have some good talent there. So yeah, it's just all about the new manager, really, for me.
yeah, I agree. What do you think their ceiling is for the season?
So I've gone with, after losing different things in different parts and everything changing, the best I could see them doing is 11th. I don't think they can do much better than that. I can't really see them getting top half. So I've cut it off there at 11th, because I think it's going to be pretty tough, and I think they could be in a bit of a relegation battle. They could see themselves slipping into that, but I hope that doesn't happen with kind of the Irish representation there. But yeah, I could easily see it happening. So I've gone with 11th at a push.
Yeah, I have their ceiling at 14th, and I think they will probably finish 17th. I think maybe not 17th, fifth between kind of 16th and 17th. I think they'll just have enough to be better than the three promoted teams, but I don't think they'll have enough to be better than the likes of Everton and West Ham, who were battling down there last year. Someone said to me during the week, can't remember who it was now, but Thomas Frank went to Spurs and took the kitchen sink and left Keith Angel behind him. So I think that might say a lot about what Frank thought about him. Now, maybe he
Yeah,
wanted to stay there if he was offered, if you stay, we'll give you the head coach job, but
yeah,
that was never said. But Frank literally took the whole place with him and left Keith Angel behind. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, the same as you, I really hope to stay up with Irish manager, Irish captain, Ireland number one goalkeeper. So it's really important for us as a nation that they do stay up.
yeah.
Footballing nations, that doesn't matter a thing to the politics, like it just matters to the football that they can manage to keep themselves in the league.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think it could be a point that, yeah, they left him behind, but as you said, I think they must think highly of him to make him the manager. Like, there's so many
Mm,
options out there, and to make him like a Premier League manager is a massive statement. So I think they probably did think very highly of him. I'd like to think so anyway. And yeah, I think if they did go down or they're around that area, Kelleher and Collins will probably move again, which wouldn't be great to see if they're like making a nice relationship hopefully there now. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
yeah. And finally, then, what's the one piece of business you think they need to do to help them this season?
So I think
We'll have the
replacing,
same one again.
yeah, Embuemo's
Mm,
productivity, good splash of money. I don't want to see one of these like buying three lads for
West
10
Ham.
million. Yeah, West Ham job that we mentioned. So I think right sided attacker probably is top of the list there for them. So that's what I
Mm.
went with. I'd
Yeah,
say.
same as myself. Yeah, replacing Embuemo and potentially Visa is going to be their biggest ask this summer. Replacing one is hard. Replacing both is borderline impossible. So we'll have to wait and see what they do there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with
So
that.
So moving on to Fulham then. Where do Fulham need to improve most from last season?
So I said I found it hard with Fulham because they have like a pretty okay squad. They have a good manager. They're like a mid-table team, and they've been in the Premier League for a long time. So I think something outside the Premier League is to push for a cup really hard and put everything into that would be a point of emphasis for me. That I think they could improve how much effort. I'm sure they've obviously tried so hard in the cup, but don't worry as much about the Premier League. They're probably going to end up finishing like in between 12th and 8th. So just push for a cup really hard this year, like Palace did, and hopefully find yourself a way into Europe that way.
Yeah, I actually think that's a great shout. A bit like yourself, I struggled to kind of pick an area to improve without going into the transfers and stuff. But then I was looking and I realized that they never replaced Polino when he left Bayern.
Yeah,
So that would be a massive improvement if they got in a proper number six there into their midfield.
yeah. Well, I actually really like Sander Berge. So he's actually one of the guys
Yeah.
I had in my three players to make an
Mm.
impact. Because I think they bought him before Polina, so he obviously wasn't a replacement for him. But I think I actually like him there, but I do still think they probably need someone else. But he's one of my guys there. I think they did a good bit of business to get him. And I actually wouldn't have minded him at United at the time because I think he was a good option
Yeah.
for decent money. Um, I also had Iwobi. He's been a metronome for the team now in midfield, carrying the ball up and down, fighting backwards, and he has productivity on the attacking end as well. So he's turned into a nice midfielder for them, and I think he'll have another good season. And then third up, I went for Anthony Robinson. I think he's a class player. He could probably start for pretty much any team, probably in the Premier League, probably in world football. He's very very good. So they have a real class player on their hands there. So he's probably up there for me. Probably their best player in my opinion.
I actually had two different players to you. I did have Anthony Robinson as well. He was the top assistant defender in the league last year. I just thought he was absolutely brilliant from all year long. He was especially good when they played Liverpool at Anfield. It was the one who obviously knows him the most because he's playing Liverpool most. I just thought he was excellent that day, and he was just excellent all season. I had Emil Smith Rowe as well, their club record signing last year. I think he needs to be the creative force for him this year. He had a bit of a settling in year last year. He had a lot of ups and downs. I think he needs to show the form now that made him think he was going to be Arsenal's number 10 for the rest of his career. So he needs to get back to that sort of level. And then if they can hold on to him, I think Rodrigo Muniz is going to be their key goal threat this season.
Yeah, I like
Raul
him.
Jimenez is yeah, Raul Jimenez is he's solid. He's a good backup now at his age. Rodrigo Muniz needs to step up and get 10, 12, 15 goals in the league next year if he can and see where he can push him from there then.
Yeah, no, I like the shout. I'm not sold on Smith Rowe yet, to be honest.
Me either.
I need to see more from him. But yeah, if he makes an impact and he does, like you said, live up to what he probably thinks and Fulham thought of him, then that'll be good for him. But Mooney's, yeah, great shout on that.
So what do you think their ceiling is for the current season?
I think 12th. I think one position worse than last season. I know I said they could finish between like 12th and 8th, but I think 12th is probably the highest that they can do because the league is getting stronger. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I just think the gap between like ninth and 12th is probably nothing, and maybe ninth and like
Mm.
14th. So maybe a few bounces of the ball and they might finish like in the top half, but I really do think that 12th is probably the push for them right now because other teams seem to be storming further ahead, especially with the money being spent by teams around them.
Yeah, I'm glad you said between ninth and 14th because I thought the same as you and I put ninth as their ceiling. That there is no literally there could be a 2 points between ninth and 14th next season or 4 points between ninth and 14th. As you said, a drop for ball, a VAR decision going their way, they could very easily finish in the top half. So that's what their ceiling is. But they really do need to recruit well in the next couple of weeks if that's going to happen because I don't think they've actually made a single signing yet. I
No,
think
they've
they have
only
the
got
exact
one
same squad.
backup goalkeeper. That's it.
Yeah, so they have the exact same squad that finished last season. Obviously, it wasn't good enough to get top off last year. It's not going to be good enough this year. So, depending on what they do in the market in the next month, it could change from. But I think realistically, we are looking at between 13th and 15th, but their ceiling is ninth for me.
Yeah, no, makes sense. That was your point about how they haven't signed anyone yet. Like looking at what one piece of business they need to do, I was like,
Mm.
how many pieces of business they need to do because they haven't
Yeah,
done a thing, and we're only like a week out from the start of the season now, or just over a week and a
two
half
weeks.
as we're recording this. Like so, um, like that backup goalkeeper, I'd say he's probably third choice. I think he's like 500,000 they spent on him, and he's like
Yeah.
34. So that's just a third choice keeper. And if I was to pick one thing, I think right winger. I think Adama isn't really a good option in the Premier League on long term, and Harry Wilson is fine, but probably a similar boat, and he is getting a bit older now at this point. So maybe someone young, a right sided player that is young and can build with the team. I think would be the first thing I would look at for them.
I mentioned already, and I think that defensive midfielder who can sit in beside Sanderberger is the key bit of business from. Get
Mm.
that number six in and go from there. I agree with you. Adama Traore is a waste of time. Harry Wilson is kind of this is he's at his peak level now. He's not going to be any better than he is right now. So they do need someone there as well, but
He's an
they
impact
just
sub
need
for them.
someone that can sit in the midfield. Yeah, he is 100%, and he's a solid impact sub, but he's not someone that you want to hang your hat on if you need someone to come on and change the game with 20 minutes to go. So they could do with someone like that, but definitely a defensive midfielder as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot they need to do. But
Yeah, there is big
let's
time.
watch them for the next couple of weeks because they need to start moving quickly if they want to do this, getting anybody before the season starts. So
Mm.
let's move on into two more NFL teams. We're in the AFC South now. So we've got the Titans and Texans today. So we'll start with the better team this time. Let's start with the Texans. So where do they need to improve most from last season?
So interceptions from CJ Stroud. He threw 12 last season. He needs to have a word with himself because he had such a good first year and then a really poor second year. This is a massive, massive year for him now, and he really needs to reduce the turnovers and just maybe listen to his offensive coach.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that kind of ties into my point that mine was that the offensive line was so bad. He didn't really have a whole lot of time. I think that probably fed into the amount of interceptions he had. Still doesn't make it acceptable, but I think the 2 points add together. 54 sacks allowed is third worst in the league. Laramie Tunsil is somebody who they saw as a very good player for a number of years, but they let him go now to the Commanders. I think he had the most penalties drawn amongst tackles in the league. So he was literally just getting called for offensive holding non-stop on any big player getting called back. So now they've got Cam Robinson in on a 1 year deal. I don't think he's anything special really, but it's a 1 year deal, so it's probably something that he wants to prove himself. And I think it's close to 10 million maybe that he got. So let's see how he does there at left tackle. But yeah, Tunsil going. I think apparently he was pretty bad in the locker room too, and he was kind of giving a bad vibe to the whole situation. So I think they've done the right thing and blown that whole thing up and tried to change it around. So I think the O
Yeah,
line was
fair.
awful, but I think they've tackled it nicely to change it. So looking at the three players then who will make the biggest impact, who did you have for that?
So I actually have two for the same position. So I have Will Anderson Jr. and Daniel Hunter are two of them. They really need to keep doing what they were doing last year. They were both very good last year, really good pass rushers. So the two of them, and then Christian Kirk to help CJ Stroud. I don't know if he will be wide receiver one, but he's a really, really good option for CJ Stroud to have. So we'll see how it goes from there. He's kind
Yeah,
of the replacement for Diggs, really.
yeah, he slipped under the radar going over there. I actually forgot that he went there until I was looking at some of the roster for this. But I have Daniel Hunter as well as you. 12 sacks last year in his first season with Houston. They need his experience to work alongside Will Anderson.
Yeah.
He's not one of the guys I had, but I think he's unbelievably good. And getting him and Stroud in the same draft was so good. But he had 11 himself
Mm,
last year, so I think 5 Pro Bowls already for Daniil Hunter. I think he'll just be trying to add another one to that, and I think he's important. So
definitely.
same as you there. Second, I had Derek Stingley Jr. I think he's the best cornerback in the league. Some of the interceptions he had, that one I think was against the Colts where he had two interceptions. The second one was utterly
Oh,
unbelievable the way he tracked the ball.
mm,
He's top class. He was the highest paid player per year at the position with 30 million. Sauce I think got an extra like 100,000 on top of that. But I think the way that the Stingley deal is structured may be better. I don't know a whole lot about it, but that's some of the stuff bouncing around. So I think he's paid like the best cornerback in the league, and he is probably up there. And I think personally that he is probably. 5 interceptions the last 2 years, and I think he'll add to that again. And then lastly,
Yeah,
I had CJ Stroud. We don't mention quarterbacks a lot, but I think this is a massive year for him, as you kind of mentioned with the interceptions he had last year. He had an unbelievable first year, but then last year he got absolutely lit up with sacks, threw a lot of interceptions. So I think more weapons now. Adding Christian Kirk to already Tank Dell, and who I think will be wide receiver one is probably Nico Collins.
yeah,
I'd say we'll sit in Kirk maybe number two with Tank Dell around that point too. And then they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who are two top class wide receivers out of college, especially Higgins. I'm excited to see him. So I think Stroud has a lot more to work with this year, and I think he'll have a very big impact on this team. And I'm pretty high on them, to be honest. So that actually leads nicely then into their wins, which is 9.5. Do you think they're going to hit it?
yeah. I think they're going over. I have base around 11 to 12. I think 12 at a push, 11 realistic. To be honest, I am really high on myself this year. I do think CJ Stroud will turn it around. As you said, they have done a good bit of work on the offensive line. They've added more weapons from the past too. The running game is quite decent as well. So I think they're going over comfortably. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same. They're in a weak division. I know some of the
Mm.
other teams in the division have an easier schedule than them, given that they finished first last year. But I still think they're good enough to win 10 games again because they had 10 last year, and I think they've improved, and the culture will probably be better based on some of the reporting that's coming out. So yeah, that's what I had too. And looking at the ceiling with the current roster and coach, I've gone with them getting an extra playoff win than last year, so that would them winning the divisional round and getting to the AFC Championship game. Now, I don't see that happening because I think more realistically is that it's going to be the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, one, two of those teams in that game. But I think they are good enough to do it. And I think if Stroud works better with all the weapons and D'Amico Ryan's continues to have this defense absolutely humming, they're unbelievable on the defensive side of the ball. So I think they are good enough to do that as an absolute push to get to that game. Just go one better than last year.
Yeah, I had the same. I could see against the AFC South game and then just saying, farewell, we leave it here for now. And then kind of looking for a couple of people who need new homes and just working from there then. I don't think they're good enough to get to win it, but I think they are good enough to get there.
Yeah, I'd like to see them in that game. I know we said we want the Bills and Ravens, but I think they have a lot of fight about them.
It's anyone different. Yeah, anyone
Yeah,
different than the Chiefs winning it back all over again. I'll just take anyone at this stage.
yeah, it'd be nice to see maybe even a Texans Ravens or something. Two strong defenses. That would be. Yeah, I really like them this year. I think a lot of people were high on them last year. I did see them, as I'd mentioned a good few times. A lot of quarterbacks have that sophomore slump, and I'm not overly keen on betting highly on a team that has a quarterback who's had a really good first year and he's going into his second year. But now, after having kind of a tough year last year, I think he's going to really bounce back, and I really like them this year. So let's move on then to the Titans, our last team. Super exciting team. So much going on over there. Where do they need to improve most from last season? A lot of places, but what did you have?
Yeah. Well, Cam Ward said that the offense was very mid, in his own words, in an interview recently. So I think they obviously need to improve their offensive cohesion because that's not going to be any good to anyone if their
The
defense is very
quarterback.
mid.
I know.
It's really is. It's some way to start. It really is some way to start. He admitted to growing pains with timing and passing it. Sorry, with timing and accuracy issues. So that sounds more like a him problem than a very
Yeah,
mid offense
yeah,
problem. But I think that's where a lot of their issues are going to come from, and they need to just try and get that sorted straight away. So just deal with their quarterback issues and kind of build from there.
yeah. No, I agree with that. The offense is that's just crazy. I didn't even see that quote. That's
Very
so
mid,
mad.
yeah.
Oh my god. He's said some mad stuff since he's gone there. Like even when they were like, "How do you feel about Will Levis getting injured?" He's just like, "I just care about Cam Ward."
Oh, I
And
don't
like,
care.
come
Yeah,
on, like, you don't need to say that. But yeah, I
yeah.
think he has a lot of confidence in himself. Mine is that they need any type of quarterback play. Will Levis
Mm.
just was lighting them on fire every single week with some of the plays he was making. They were crazy. But I think any type of quarterback play would be a benefit. So let's see if he gives it to them. Three players then that'll make the biggest impact.
after the comments, I had to put Cam Ward in. I think he's going to be one to watch for the year. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. It's probably going to be bad, but he's someone that's definitely everyone's going to be waiting for him to say something in a press conference after a game or do something stupid on the pitch. So he's definitely one to watch. I think
Yeah,
Calvin Ridley, all jokes aside, is going to be the one that if anyone's going to stabilize Cam Ward, it will be him. And then I can't ever put this fella down because saying his first name's a disaster. But oh damn, well, Ola Dejo, the linebacker rookie.
yeah,
He was really, really good at college year last year. Ola, no, we'll leave it there. I just think yeah, he's going to be tasked with kind of helping the pass rush out, especially after Landry's exit as well. So we'll see how he does.
yeah. So we've got I think the first name he likes to be called Femi, so that makes it easier if you just want to refer to him as that.
Ideal,
So Femi from now
absolutely
on.
wonderful. He's a
But
great
yeah,
lad.
yeah, that's a nice pick there. I've gone with Cam Ward too. I think a lot of people in Tennessee and in Titans culture see him as kind of the savior. So let's see what he can do. I think he'll have a big impact with the confidence he has, even um,
Yeah,
on some of the players around him. But then if he keeps making stupid comments, then other players might get a bit annoyed at him, especially veterans. So let's see how that whole thing shakes out. He'll have a lot of learning to do. And then I've also gone with Calvin Ridley. He's always been solid, 3 1,000 plus yard seasons, and even last year with this team having Will Levis and Mason Rudolph playing at quarterback, he still managed that again. So I think he's very good, and I think an improvement at quarterback will see an improvement with him. And then Legarius Sneed, I thought he was a really, really good pickup. I was actually really high on this team last year because I thought Will Levis might actually be able to do something for them if he cut out the mistakes. And I thought the defense was so good on paper, and they had some really, really good games. But I think they're in a situation now where Callahan really needs to sort them out defensively on a consistent basis, and I hope he does because I think they have something there. And I think Sneed was a class pickup for them, and he's still only 28. He's still a lot to offer, so
yeah,
I like that one for
absolutely.
them. 5.5 wins then is the over under. I presume we both have the same here.
Surely you've gone under. So,
No, I'm honking you,
oh
just like Ashton Kutcher. By I've gone with 6.
no, I've gone with five. We'll
I
talk
knew
about their
you'd go
ceiling in a
under.
second. I just don't like him. I don't think they're very good. I think Cam Ward is going to be a disaster for him, to be honest, with the way he goes out. He's too much confidence for a man playing on a rotten team. I think they're just going under.
Yeah, the under is a smart thing. That was my kind of my joke there because I've gone with over. You're much smarter in that decision because that makes more sense. But for some reason, just looking at some of the games that they have on their cards, and the fact that last year I thought they were going to be pretty good, and I still really like the defense. I just said maybe they'll get 6 wins, and some of Cam Ward's play coupled with a nice defense will get the fans happy, and it'll keep the coach
Yeah,
in place because 6 wins would be an improvement. So I can just see maybe that happening, but probably you're on a better boat there than me.
yeah.
So then, what's their ceiling with the current roster and coach?
8 wins is their ceiling, I think. As we just said, 5 to 6 does seem likely. 5.5 is a great line again because everywhere you look, it's like, oh, 5 to 6 wins seems likely here. It's like, yeah, well, that doesn't help anyone trying to bet on them because
Yeah,
the line is 5.5. But
yeah.
I think 8 wins is probably their ceiling. I think they'll do really well to get there.
Yeah, I had the same close. I had 7 wins. Just because they're strong defense, I think they could see out a couple of games that they might not be expected to challenge in. So, and you never know what's going to happen in that division. I know that the Texans are probably the favorites. Some people like the Jags with their new look. Some people still believe in Anthony Richardson for some unknown
Mm.
reason. So I think there's a bit of a mixed bag, but anything can happen in that division, and they could end up winning it just out of pure randomness. But I really, really can't see that happening. I could see more likely that they get maybe an extra 2 wins than people thought. So 7 is my push there with them.
Fair enough.
But that's all we have for this week. A little bit of a shorter episode. So we'll be back again next week with 2 episodes, as I mentioned earlier. Thanks again for listening. If you made it this far, we hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll throw it to you, Shane, to say your goodbyes.
Yep, we'll see you twice next week. So make sure you watch both because you obviously love looking at us. Why wouldn't you? So we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.
Nice one, lads.